If you're trapped in an apocalypse where no one can fall asleep, and in 5 days, the entire population will die from sleep deprivation, what do you do? These insomniacs are going to lose their minds so quickly that you'll never want to stay up late again. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the sleepless apocalypse in a wake. This family is going to have the longest day of their entire lives. Matilda here is out on a drive with her older brother and her army veteran mom, when the radio suddenly goes out and the car loses all electric power. Her mother swerves to avoid an oncoming car, and just when her family thinks they're safe, a truck crashes into them, sending them tumbling into a lake. They manage to escape their sinking vehicle as the mother swims to the surface and finds her son Noah, but that's when she sees 2 cops giving CPR to her daughter on shore. The girl's resuscitated and the mother is relieved, but the police officer has bad news. The power is out everywhere and no vehicles are working. Noticing the mother's wound, the cops suggest they go to the VA hospital nearby, but none of them realize that this power outage will stop them all from sleeping and kill every human on the planet. The family tries to get medical attention at the hospital, but the power is out and the place is in chaos. Suddenly, the mother hears a woman screaming for help, and when she goes to look, she finds that every coma patient in the hospital is awake. Okay, this would freak me out big time. When a room full of coma patients are all waking up at the exact same time after years of no response, I'd be secretly hoping that the dead are waking up too. Because if a zombie apocalypse is upon us, then I can finally use my samurai sword the way God intended. The truth, however, is far more terrifying. What these people should be way more concerned about is the power outage, because when everything goes out instantly over a large area like this, you can be sure it's either from a very powerful E1 electromagnetic pulse or a geomagnetic disturbance from the sun. Now, in the hospital, this guy said he thought this was a terrorist attack, and Noah here scoffed at him, but it's actually not a ridiculous claim. If a country with nuclear weapons detonated a nuclear bomb at a high altitude over the country, it would wipe out all solid-state electronics. Any digital communication would be impossible, and it's not just your smartphone that dies, but satellites, computers, and banking systems would all be gone too. Honestly, it's an absolutely devastating act of terrorism because without electricity, even the most powerful country on Earth would have no working technology to respond to the terrorist threat. A lot of military equipment is protected against EMPs by built-in failsafes, but with only 7% of US power generation controlled by the government, most of the nation's power system is under private ownership that view an EMP event as highly unlikely, so there has been virtually no preparation for this scenario. The collapse of our power system could require 10 years to fully recover and would cost $2 trillion to restore. If that doesn't sound like a disaster waiting to happen, then I don't know what does. This family needs to be preparing for a decade without power, and if I were them, I would ditch the hospital and head to the nearest grocery store to grab as much food as possible before it's too late. I would then try to find a car with no electronics in it so we can travel further to scout for resources. One huge problem is that we still wouldn't be able to fill the tank at a gas station because gas pumps are electronically activated, so we'll need to siphon as many of the abandoned cars as we can find before others have the same idea. Now, there is one alternative theory here that is equally terrifying, because this power outage could also be caused by solar magnetic pulses from the sun called geomagnetic disturbances. A coronal mass ejection from the sun would have the same effect as a powerful EMP and would fry all electronic devices across the world. The scariest part about this is that it already happened in 1859. It wasn't a big deal at the time because back then, they only had telegraph systems. But in 2012, a massive coronal ejection missed the Earth by 9 days ahead of our orbit, and it would have wiped out anything with a microchip. Both of these scenarios are completely possible, and the only people who will be prepared are the old order Amish. The entire country will be begging these cow-milking Mennonites to teach them life skills on how to survive, because they've been living without technology for centuries. And if I have to ask Amish people for advice on how to survive, this is not the apocalypse I want to be a part of. With no car, the family walks to their grandmother's house to spend the night. It gets dark and they all go to bed, but the mom is restless, and no matter what she does, she can't fall asleep. Upstairs, her son is looking out the window and notices several shooting stars, but the mother realizes that these are low-orbit satellites and they're all crashing to Earth. That morning, she heads into the sleep lab where she works, but is startled when a soldier barges in with his gun raised. The mother explains that she's a veteran, and her boss, Dr. Murphy, comes in to vouch for her. The woman tells her the government is setting up a military hub to research why nobody can fall asleep, and asks her to join them, but the mother turns the doctor down to stay with her children. This research assistant tells her she's making a huge mistake, and explains that people are suddenly experiencing severe insomnia throughout the entire world overnight, and everyone will die if a cure isn't found, but there's still hope. They've found one woman who can still sleep, and he believes they can discover why. She tells him that her daughter was able to sleep last night, and that catches the man's attention. He makes it clear that if her daughter can sleep, she's one of the only 2 people on Earth who can still do that. Realizing how serious this is, the mother leaves the building and rushes back home to find her daughter. Okay, this is a new terrifying reality. This research assistant just told us that without sleep, everyone will die, and he's actually right, because there's a limit to how long we can stay awake before dying. Now, the longest documented case of someone staying awake is 11 days, but diseases like fatal familial insomnia, which makes you unable to sleep, are 100% fatal because without sleep, your organs shut down completely. This means Matilda here will be one of the only people living on the planet, and she has no skills whatsoever to survive. This changes everything, because from what the researchers said, the symptoms from sleep deprivation are appearing 2 to 3 times faster than normal. That means 99% of humanity will die in 5 days instead of 12. Now, this mother has been awake for 24 hours, so she's already quickly losing her critical thinking ability. If the average human has an IQ of 100, after 24 hours, this woman's IQ might actually fall below her own daughter's intelligence. She needs to use these valuable hours of normal brain function to teach her daughter everything she knows about how to survive. She's been awake for 24 hours, and in 4 more days, she'll be dead. Now, there was one decision that they could have made months ago that would have saved their lives. Bespoke Post is a monthly membership club delivering awesome boxes of top-shelf goods from under-the-radar brands. And when the apocalypse hits, you're going to wish you stocked up with Bespoke Post. The trail kit they sent me comes with a field box that's sturdy enough to protect ammunition, tools, and pretty much anything else, with a water-resistant compression lid and a beefy construction, as well as a gut hook knife, a pocket saw with nylon straps, paracord bracelet with 10 feet of potentially life-saving cord, and importantly, this book, Surviving the Great Outdoors by Brendan Leonard. With just 24 hours to learn how to survive, this book is going to be what saves your life. Every month, Bespoke Post sends you cool new products based on your preferences, like this beautiful handmade Damascus steel knife and leather sheath from the Forge box. Each box has at least $70 in retail value, but costs only $45, so it's a great deal. And if you don't like the box they assign you, you can easily swap it for another box or skip a month whenever you want. By the time an EMP hits, it's going to be way too late for online shopping, so you know you better act fast. Use my link in the description and coupon code HOWTOBE20 to get 20% off your first monthly box today. And when everyone else is caught unprepared, you'll be ready. Thank you to Bespoke Post for sponsoring this video. Running inside the house, the mother discovers her daughter is missing, and Noah here says she's at church with her grandma. They need to find a working car to get the girl to safety, and the two are about to leave the house when the lab assistant suddenly barges in. He demands to know if her daughter is able to sleep, and her son reveals the truth, saying that he woke the girl up this morning. The man insists they go to the hub to research the girl, but the mother refuses and rushes her son outside. At the church, the little girl wakes up from her nap, and the congregation believes she's a sign from God. Desperate for a cure to their insomnia, this one suggests they sacrifice the girl in order to be healed, and the pastor is against the idea. But when this man volunteers to help kill her, the rest of the church realizes they're all willing to do anything for a night of sleep. That's when the mother walks in asking for her daughter, and the pastor tells her the girl might be able to cure them. She tries to calm them down, but the congregation makes it clear they won't let the girl leave. The lab assistant steps forward and threatens to come back with the army if they don't hand her over, but that's when all hell breaks loose. The cop suddenly shoots the man in the head, and everyone is stunned. The grandma runs with the girl to hide, and everyone chases her down to receive their blessing. Okay, now that we know it takes just over 24 hours without sleep to turn a God-loving congregation into Westboro Baptist Church, I think I'll be skipping youth camp for the foreseeable future. So far, these people have shown both loss of critical thinking and paranoia from accelerated symptoms of sleep deprivation. Clearly, we can't trust anyone, and the less sleep everyone gets, the more irrational they're going to become. That means calm negotiation and level-headed reasoning will become useless tools because people will be making decisions based on their emotional state. And right now, their emotional state is uncontrollable fear. This is incredibly dangerous, but it's also a blessing in disguise, because there's a great way to use their insomnia and fear to our advantage. These believers have had so little sleep and are so desperate for answers that as long as we tell them exactly what they want to hear, we can control the room. If I were this girl, I would tell them I'm willing to sacrifice myself just like Jesus did. Then I'd reach for the offering tray and tell them they'll only receive divine healing after they surrender their hearts, guns, and wallets to God. If they already believe that this girl is a sign, then they just might be willing to listen. Once they're disarmed, I'll tell them all to bow their heads in prayer, and when their eyes are closed, I'll quietly leave the building. It sounds crazy, but faith and survival are extremely powerful motivators, and when you haven't slept in 26 hours, pretty much anything will sound like a good idea to a room of desperate and emotional people. Downstairs, they search one of the rooms for the girl, and the grandma won't tell anyone where she is, but she sees the mother and signals at the daughter's hiding place. That's when the cop pulls his gun on the woman and demands to know where the girl is. The mother heads upstairs and finds her daughter hiding, while the son searches the lab assistant's dead body for anything useful. In his breast pocket, he finds a piece of paper with the coordinates of the research hub on it, but when gunshots go off downstairs, he realizes he needs to leave immediately. Leaving the church, the family runs through the forest and stops at a repair shop. The mother tells them she's going to find a working car, and her son suggests they should head to the research hub, but she disagrees. The scientist will turn her daughter into a guinea pig, but he points out they'll both die from sleep deprivation, and Matilda here will be alone if they don't find help. Realizing he's right, the mother agrees and goes off to search for a car. Okay, this was terrible logic. If I actually had any faith that scientists could figure out a cure, then I would express ship this girl to the research lab without even a fragile sticker on the box. Unfortunately, cures and vaccines take months or years to discover, and in a sleepless apocalypse, time is something they do not have on their side. In 48 hours, even the smartest scientific minds will be so tired that they'll be useless to finding a cure. Everyone in the world will be dead long before they could even get their treatment. It's a fool's errand, and this mother is wasting valuable time. Now, if I'm this little girl, I wouldn't want to put my life in the hands of two sleepless people who are too tired to think clearly. If I knew they're all going to be dead, then we need to look at this situation in a completely different way. Right now, we are humanity's only hope of surviving an extinction event, and that means the priority is to keep ourselves alive at all costs. If your family members are too tired to make good decisions on your behalf, then they aren't reliable and we need to ditch them. At this point, it's very likely that this girl's functional IQ is higher than both of them, so it's time to take matters into our own hands and run to the nearest library. It's the perfect place to hide because nobody will be there, but more importantly, without phones or internet, it's the only source of information left on Earth. From there, we can learn how to forage and hunt, cook and farm, and other important survival skills that we can't reliably get from our family. She walks into an auto repair shop to find a body on the floor, and two thugs are inspecting a car in the back. But when the door closes loudly behind her, the man comes to check it out. He approaches the guy on the floor who whimpers in pain, so the thug decides to shut him up for good. The criminals go back to work on their car, and the mother grabs a handful of keys, hiding under the table right before the thug approaches. That's when the men hear a car in the distance and see a military jeep passing by with medical supplies. Deciding to go after it, they get in their car and leave the shop. With the men gone, the mother takes one of the working cars and picks up her kids. But once they realize what's waiting for them at the hub, they'll wish they never left. That night, as they're driving down the road, the mother spots a crashed car and goes to check it out. She finds the bodies of the same men from the garage, and lucky for her, they still have a loaded gun. She picks it up and takes the man's stolen police badge, but would never guess that this badge will be even more important in saving their lives than the gun. Later, the family stops on the side of the road while her daughter sleeps, and the mother reveals to her son that she used to torture people with sleep deprivation in the military. She worked with a doctor who's running the hub, but is still willing to take her daughter there if it means they can find some help. Okay, she's been awake for 36 hours, and in 3.5 more days, she'll be dead. First of all, the mother should have known better than to approach the roadside crash from earlier because it's the perfect setup for an ambush. And as a soldier, it's something she should have an instinct to look out for even without sleeping for 36 hours. Now, it does bring up an important point, because if anyone has some crucial information to prolong the effects of sleep deprivation, it should be Jill here. The Special Forces trained to function under severe sleep deprivation, and one of the real-life tactics they use to stay alert after days without sleep is to rub Tabasco sauce under their eyelids. This stimulates the body with pain, and it sounds extremely unpleasant, but being sharper than everyone else, even for only 10 minutes, can make the difference between living and dying. They also chew on coffee powder to get concentrated caffeine into their system, and if we already can't fall asleep, then it's all going to be about tricking your brain to keep it working at a higher level to make better decisions for the sake of this girl's future. Now, this isn't her only advantage, because she also works at a sleep lab and has access and knowledge to all kinds of medication that could both put people to sleep or keep them awake for study. If I could keep myself and Noah here operating at a higher mental capacity, then we're going to be less likely to make the kinds of terrible decisions that get us killed. Now, if we have brain-enhancing medication, we need to be very strategic about when to use it, because if we are continuously medicated, our lymphatic system won't be able to flush the toxins out from the brain without sleep. That means chemicals we put into the brain are going to be there to stay. A good marker for when we can get the most effective use out of this medication is to test your judgment with memorization techniques. As the mother gets more exhausted, she tries to memorize numbers, and based on how many she can get right, it tells her how quickly her brain function is deteriorating. Now, the accepted diagnostic test for global memory impairment is to recall 5 random words or numbers. So if we get to the point where we can't remember more than 5 digits, then that means it's time to pay your doctor a visit. The next day, the family stops at a library to find a map to figure out the coordinates of the hub. Inside, the mother realizes that she's going to die soon and her daughter will need to know to survive without her. She tries to teach the girl how to shoot, but Matilda here refuses. Insisting she learns, the woman takes the gun and shoots into the bookshelves, but the girl runs back to the car afraid. That's when the mother turns around and sees her son Noah standing inches away from the bullet holes. She thought he was back in the car, and in her sleep-deprived state, she could have killed him. Their judgment is so far gone that with every next decision they make, things are only going to get worse. Later, they decode the coordinates for the hub and figure out it's 150 miles away. But she hears a noise outside and looks out the window to find 2 released prisoners fighting over a vending machine. Realizing her daughter is in the car downstairs, they run out of the library to check on her, but it's too late, as the car peels out of the driveway. They chase it down the street, but run into a crowd of escaped prisoners. This man claims he won't hurt the mother if she lets him have her son, but she makes it clear that will never happen and fires a warning shot. The prisoners step back, but when they see she's out of bullets, they're ready to run in for the kill. Suddenly, the car pulls up with their daughter, and the driver tells them to get in. Okay, this mother should not have fired her gun, but it's important to get one thing out of the way first. She's been awake for 48 hours, which is long enough to have symptoms of loss of motor function, and in 3 more days, she'll be dead. However, she picked this gun up more than 12 hours ago, and if you're lucky enough to find a free gun lying in the road in the middle of an apocalypse, you better believe I'm gonna count how many bullets I have. Now, the mother had a great idea to teach her daughter how to shoot, but taking it away and firing 3 bullets is not a good use of your resources, so I would have made a rule for myself much earlier on not to fire this thing unless we were being attacked. Now, we can also reason that there are 50 prisoners here, and after being locked up without anything to eat, they're all going to be hungrier for food than for 17-year-old boys. Once we realize that sleep and hunger are their primary motivators, we can lie and tell them that there's an abandoned supermarket 2 miles down the road that's still stocked and they can find food there. I'd be willing to bet that 99% of the convicts will head for the make-believe supermarket, and anyone that chose to stay would be easier to shoot and kill with the bullet she has remaining. Holding the man at gunpoint, the mother finds out that Dodge here escaped prison after the guards opened the cells and set them all free. The boy notices something ahead, and the man hits the brakes, sending the gun flying out of the mother's hands. The convict manages to grab it, but the woman lets him know it's out of ammo. With no other options, the man takes the car keys and heads out to investigate the airplane crash site. The mother teaches her daughter how to siphon gas from a tractor, while Dodge here asks about them, and Noah explains she's training the girl to survive after they all die. This catches the man off guard, and realizing the girl is special, he decides to join the group with no idea that this road trip will turn into a murdering spree. That night, the daughter is learning how to drive when they find a blockade in the middle of the road. Looking for a way around, they spot someone draining blood from 2 captured victims, and the mom realizes they're in danger. The car is suddenly attacked by insomniacs who try to drag them out of the vehicle. They fight them off as the girl pushes on the gas pedal, and they manage to escape with their lives. The group continues driving until they see the lights of the research hub in the distance, and the mother goes to scout it alone to make sure it's safe. Sneaking onto the base, she finds a platoon of exhausted soldiers armed to the teeth, and overhears 2 of them reciting the entrance code to the building. Barely able to memorize the 4-digit sequence, she uses it to break into the hub. Okay, the mother was struggling to remember only 4 digits, which means her memory and concentration is at a new all-time low, and that's not just her we have to worry about. At this point, these soldiers have been awake for at least 60 hours, and that's enough time to give them severe paranoia and hallucinations. Now, when you add automatic rifles to the equation, it makes for an extremely dangerous situation regardless of their training. After this much time without sleep, nobody's judgment or self-control will be reliable, and all this is enough to tell me that sneaking into the compound is a very bad idea. The best thing this mom can do is get her daughter as far away from these soldiers as possible. In 2 days, the people on this base will all be paralyzed and so close to death from sleep deprivation that the daughter can get whatever she needs to survive if she just waits. The mother is so tunnel-visioned right now and isn't thinking straight about the best solution for her daughter, but there's at least a better way to do it. Distractions are going to be an incredibly effective tactic against these soldiers who don't have a strong ability to focus. Humans have been able to survive for hundreds of thousands of years because we have what's called a hyperactive agency detection device in our brains. It's something that senses potential threats around us, but it's so overactive that we can easily be fooled by it thinking someone is there. This is going to be easy to take advantage of because these soldiers are experiencing severe sleep deprivation and will be more likely to assume any sound or movement is a human threat. It might actually be possible to take out all these soldiers by throwing rocks and making distractions to lure them away for long enough to walk right through the front door. Entering the compound, she puts on a lab coat to blend in and walks through the hub to find the old woman who can sleep. Whispering, the mother tells her that she plans on breaking her out because her daughter and this woman will be the only two people alive, and the young girl will need help to survive. That's when the old woman reveals she was a terminal patient and won't last long enough to help. Suddenly, Dr. Murphy walks in and demands to know why she's here. The mother claims she wants to help work on the cure, and the doctor is too tired to suspect that she's lying, but admits there's no hope left for humanity. The hub has only managed to create a cocktail that helps their brain function better without sleep, but at the cost of permanent brain damage. There's no cure, and in a few days, everyone will die from sleep deprivation. Disappointed and exhausted, the mother leaves the research hub and breaks down outside. Suddenly, two flares shoot into the air, and she sees the car racing towards the hub. Stopping in front of the guards, the convict and her son step out of the car and surrender as the mother runs towards them, but she gets tackled to the ground and held down at gunpoint. That's when her daughter comes out and reveals that she can sleep, sacrificing herself for her family's safety. Okay, this was a terrible idea. Right now, this girl is one of the only people on the planet that can actually sleep. She's handing herself over to be poked and prodded by doctors who are so tired they can't even see straight. If I was this little girl, I would have taken the car and left my family, because as long as she's around, they're going to think they have hope, and that's dangerous. If they all think they can fix this, they're going to put this girl's life in danger, and as they get more and more desperate for an answer to save themselves, the more they're going to be willing to sacrifice this girl's life to save humanity. All she'll need to do is hide for 2 days, and everyone will be dead. But now that she's going to be taken by the hub, she'll lose that chance forever. The next morning, the girl speaks with the doctor and he tells her that they're going to run some tests to find out if she's special. Putting a gas mask over her mouth, the girl falls asleep in seconds and they're amazed. It's a miracle, and the research team is ready to start experimenting. Later, the doctor enters a room where the mother and son are being held prisoners. She's been awake for 72 hours, which is long enough to have symptoms of organ failure, and in 2 more days, she'll be dead. Trying to figure out what makes the little girl special, she asks if the daughter had any surgeries, but in the mother's delirious state, she can barely focus. The doctor explains that the insomnia was caused by a solar flare that disrupted everyone's lymphatic system, which helps get rid of biological waste in the brain. Her daughter is immune, and they're going to do everything in their power to find out why. Suddenly, the old woman stops breathing and they all rush to revive her with shock paddles. The girl watches as the woman passes away, and now she's the only one left who can save humanity. In the prison room, the mother is still handcuffed to a pipe and begins to see her son trying to kill her, but figures out it's an hallucination as one of the guards comes in and takes Noah here away for testing. The researchers need to know what makes her daughter so unique, but that's when everything takes a dramatic turn for the worse. Outside, a soldier freaks out and kicks a pine cone away, hallucinating that it's a grenade. He starts firing wildly, thinking they're under attack, and the other soldiers start shooting, killing anyone they think is a threat. This guard shoves the older brother down onto the floor and holds him at gunpoint, but the convict comes to his rescue. He tries to get the soldier to calm down, but he's tackled to the floor before he can run away. A soldier comes into the room where the mother is being held prisoner and asks if she's Sandra. The woman says yes, thinking she might help her escape, but the guard starts shooting wildly before putting herself to sleep permanently. One of the bullets hit the pipe that the mother was handcuffed to, and now she can break free. In the operating room, the doctor gets injected with another cocktail to help her stay focused for their experiment, but that's when the mother walks in. The doctor takes the little girl hostage, but she suddenly collapses in pain, and the girl realizes that the man intentionally left an air bubble in the needle to save her life. The mother rescues her kid and walks through the facility, protecting the girl from the rogue soldiers. They reach her son just in time to see that he's hallucinating before he cuts a live wire with a scalpel and electrocutes himself. Thinking quickly, the daughter goes to grab the shock paddle she saw in the operating room and brings the device as fast as she can. The girl gives it to her mom and runs through the steps to use the machine, but they don't clear away from the body in time and the kid jolts back. They're all shocked by the electric current, and the mother has no idea if her children will survive. By the next morning, all the guards have killed each other off, and Matilda here is alive, but Noah hasn't moved at all. Then the girl realizes he's actually breathing, and the boy wakes up. He tells his mom he was dreaming, and she breaks down in tears of joy. With no one left alive in the hub, they start loading up supplies into a jeep, but the mother is so exhausted she can barely function. She's been awake for 96 hours, which is long enough to show symptoms of paralysis, and in one more day, she'll be dead. Inside, the daughter finds a sheriff's badge on the floor, and she's suddenly struck with a crazy idea. Running outside, she finds her brother and tells him that he died from the electrocution, but the paddles brought him back. She then asks if she died in the lake before the cops saved her, and Noah begins to understand that dying resets the effects of the solar flare, allowing them to sleep. Looking to their mother, the children realize that if they don't try to save her now, she'll be dead in less than a day. They carry their mom to a lake nearby and drag her into the water where they begin to drown her. Holding the woman below the surface, she thrashes for a moment but is too tired to fight them and dies. Taking her to shore, they pump her chest and nothing is happening until suddenly the woman gulps in a breath of air and realizes that a mother can never get any sleep. But what do you think? How would you beat awake? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. Until next time, have a damn good day.